Hello everyone, my name is Holger Seim. I'm the Director of Drama Studies at UTM, and I am happy to welcome you to the third director interview of the season. I'm here with David Matheson, professor at Sheridan College and one of the acting instructors in the TDS program, and also the director of She Kills Monsters, our third main stage show, which opens tomorrow, February 5th, and will run until Valentine's Day, February 14th. Hi, David.
Hi, Holger. How are you?
This is the first time we're doing one of these.
It's the first time we're doing it on video.
Correct.
We had a conversation 6 years ago for Hobbit.
Yes.
But yeah.
So apparently the only time I ever talk to you is when dragons are involved. Yes.
Only when there's dragons involved. We'll try to do, I don't know if we're running through the repertoire of dragon plays, but we must be getting down the list.
We might. There must be more.
Peer Gynt?
Oh yeah, well, we have talked about doing Peer Gynt for years.
Yes,
so maybe
it's always on the list. 5 more years.
Finally time. All right, so She Kills Monsters is, it's not actually, it's a play that's a little bit about dragons, but it's a play in the sort of role-play D&D universe in a way, but it's also, and that's my first question actually, it's also a period piece. Right? It said very specifically, and I don't know if that is remains in the text.
It does, yeah.
Like it's set in 1995 in Ohio. Like
it's a huge part of the story.
Okay, so let me ask you about that. Like as a period, is this a period piece for you?
Yes, it is a period piece for me because there's a lot of things that it talks about, like with the history of Dungeons & Dragons, it is sort of wedged in between the initial success of the game in the 70s and 80s, and then the rebirth of the game later on, and I'd say the 2010s, right? It's in that middle zone where the game kind of was fully the realm of nerds. Right. And it wasn't at its most popular. So it's kind of an interesting thing where at that time it wasn't the most popular, it was considered very fringe nerddom.
Right.
But then also at the same time, because there's a lot of LGBTQ stuff in the play, that's a big part of it. And being in Ohio in 95, that's an experience as well of being othered and put on the outskirts.
Right.
So those two things are really important.
Yeah.
Then the time period definitely speaks to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So did you, in the process, like, was that part of the process, exploring the 90s with a bunch of people from the 20-teens?
We did have to educate people on what it was like, and I was still in my undergrad in 95. It took me a while. I was actually at Lambda in the UK, but then finished my undergrad later that year. So I was of the age.
You were a witness.
I was a witness to all the events. I know the period really well. And it's an interesting thing because a period piece, you do the period of 95, but you're also influenced by the 20 years before. Right? So a lot of the experiences of people growing up are part of that. Yeah. So it's like not trying to nail 95 exactly, but also try to make sure that the time leading up to it is visible in the show as well.
Interesting. Yeah. There is something, when I just reread the play in prep for this, and it is interesting to think, I don't think I quite clocked this or thought about it when we selected it for the season, but that it's obviously a completely analog play. Like the things that had, like that games or whatever are basically a real life thing that is you come together as people for them, and in a way like this the set replicates this with these very very real multi-sided die, right?
They're rollable,
right? Yeah, you don't click a button.
We want to keep them nice, so we're not going to roll them too much, but they are rollable. It is very much an analog. There's mentions of the internet just sort of catching on, And I remember when Windows 95 came out, and that's this year, the year of this play. And even then, I was a little out of touch, and I was like, what is this internet thing? Why is everybody going crazy about it? I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
I always liked computers and everything, but I really didn't think it was as important at the time as obviously it ended up being. But this play and Dungeons and Dragons is, as a hobby, as a form of entertainment, as something you do with your friends, it is really about the things that you create around the table in real life with each other.
Right.
So that's something that the game had originally, and it's gone online and all that stuff. But in the end, it is really still the thing that happens between friends, people around a table, and creating imaginative environments. And it isn't a product of computers. Computers have helped it.
Yeah.
But really, it's about like that analog entertainment.
So one thing that happens in the play that struck me, I should frame this a little bit. Yeah. So the play is basically about a sister whose sister and parents have died in a car crash, and she encounters her sister through a D&D module that her sister wrote, and she basically plays the game in order to meet her sister for the first time properly, in a way, right?
Yeah.
That's the frame of thing. But so the play shifts back and forth between scenes set in the imaginary world that, well, her sister created, but then also the dungeon master that is guiding the game is presumably creating.
Yes.
It's a bit unclear where the dividing line is. But then there are these interesting moments where she meets someone in the game, and we obviously see them on stage, and then she encounters the real-life teenager who's actually the person that her sister drew on. Okay, so here's what struck me, and it's a little bit to do with what you just described role-playing as, that you sit around the table and you create these imaginary worlds with your friends.
Yeah.
But Agnes, the surviving sister in the play, like, she encounters these people in this imaginary world before she meets them in real life. Yeah. How does she recognize them when she first sees them in real life?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I mean, they're played by the same actor.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah.
But there are little clues that happen in the first time she meets Elizabeth, who is Lilith in the play.
Yeah.
When Elizabeth says something about her sister, which she starts to sort of put together the clues about, and then asks her questions, and it's sort of revealed. But at the very first thing she asks her when she sees her is, "What are you doing here?" Because there must be something about her that she recognizes. It does lead into one of the themes of the play and of Dungeons and Dragons, which is your acknowledgement or your discovery of your fantasy life, or the two sides of a person, the person you are and the person you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think she first encounters the people as they want to be. And I feel like you learn something about somebody by learning what they want to be, and then you can recognize them for who they are. So it's the opposite of how we normally encounter people. But I remember back in my university days, somebody said that even if they hadn't seen me in 5 years, they feel like if they sat down with me and played a game, they'd be right back there with me, right? Because I think we're united with this like creation of, and it's kind of a vulnerable creation actually, of the things that we wish to be and the things that we want to be.
Right.
And D&D has always been like at one level, it's a sword and sorcery hack and slash like thing, but that's only a veneer. That's just the first level that gets you in the door. Once you start playing, and I knew this in high school, junior high. Ironically, it was in the guidance counselor's office that we used to play, because that was the
really,
and much of a lot of the play takes place in the guidance counselor's office, and I think that's a nod to it, because it was the safest place for nerds to be.
Interesting.
You couldn't play in the library because you were too loud. You couldn't play in the halls because you'd get beaten up or thrown into a locker. So guidance counselor's office was the place to do that. Anyway, so while there, we would play characters that were oftentimes like the doppelganger of ourselves, only like the opposite of ourselves, right? So if you were a kid that was kind of worried that you were not manly enough, you'd be playing a big bearded dwarf character, right? If you're somebody who felt that they couldn't do something right, you ended up playing characters who were perfect, like elves who live forever and all, you know. And so I found with my group of friends, you know, a big guy who's a bit clumsy, plays a nimble halfling or a hobbit, right? We'd find that we'd always be playing these sort of shadow selves in the game. And it's something that this play gets right, where they get to live their fantasies, the things that they are not or wish to be in the game.
Yeah.
And it brings into the really interesting thing where the main character, what she wishes. One, she wishes for a more interesting life, which sets the whole play up.
Yeah.
But her desire is to have her sister back.
Right.
And the whole play is taking place with that as the wish fulfillment that she's like seeking.
Oh, which is interesting because like she's also the one person in the, I mean, other than Miles, right? Like she's the one person who's never played before, so she doesn't actually know what she's doing in a weird way.
And she has no idea that the secret of the game is that you get to experience to be the things you want to be or you dream of being.
Right.
And so by just getting to know her sister as the goal, she discovers this whole aspect of herself to free herself from her boring life, as she mentions them first.
Right.
And discovers community, which she doesn't really have at the beginning of the play.
Yeah.
So at the end of the play, she has community, she has creativity, her relationship's thriving, and her sister is remembered by the people that unite them.
Okay, so do you think that's also, so the sister is Tilly, the no longer alive sister is Tilly, and do you think that's also true for Tilly? Because there obviously there are aspects of sort of wish fulfillment or creating the life that she would like to have in the game, but isn't there a sort of a strand of the plot where Tilly is also really good at the game, like in real life, right? Like she's a really good dungeon master. She's the one that everyone wants to play with, and she's also an extremely accomplished character.
Yes.
So that's almost, isn't that sort of an aspect where someone is good at something in real life that they also, and their expertise is in the game as well?
Well, your expertise in the game, one of the great things about D&D, the expertise comes from playing.
Right.
And so her character is really powerful because she played a lot.
Right.
And then, I mean, she says explicitly towards the end of the play when Agnes asks her, "What is so everybody is here for a wish? Well, what was your wish?"
Yeah.
And she says, "I want to get the girl."
Yes, right.
And so that aspect, and this is where we get into the time, right?
Yeah.
1995, Ohio.
Yeah.
Not the most friendly space for a lesbian who's 16 at that time, right? So we're getting into an area where she actually gets to in her world, everybody can be whatever sexuality that they want to be.
Yeah.
And that's a vision, that's a fantasy.
Yeah.
Only a fantasy, sadly, for that time period.
Yeah.
So I think that's the...
Right.
That's where those things sort of come together, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting question because the sort of, I mean, because the game, like but at the same time, right? I mean, I think the play seems to me the play is sort of aware that the fantasy world is still created by a teenager, right? And obviously, who might not have perfect insight into everything. Like I was wondering about the cheerleaders, right? Like who are utterly evil in their fantasy version, but when we encountered them in real life, I wasn't sure because they described in all the stage directions as actually lovely, whatever. But are they really? What is their real? Are they?
Here's what I think.
Yeah.
And here's one of the things we worked on was the cheerleaders, whether anyone is, in a fantasy world, you can be evil.
Right.
But in real life, you're complicated.
Yes.
So when she dies, when Tilly dies, her last memory of these cheerleaders might have been a bullying incident. I think there's a fair amount of textual evidence for that. Does that make them evil or just 15-year-old girls?
Right.
Right?
In Ohio in 1995.
In 95,
right.
in the given circumstances. And then when they see Agnes, I think they're sort of annoying, but are they evil? I mean, I think Agnes at that point sees them as the evil cheerleaders from the fantasy world, but are they just kids, right?
Right.
And I think there is a wisdom that comes from having gone through adolescence, being bullied, and realizing that in the end, the people that bullied you were just kids.
Right. But yeah.
You were a kid, they were kids, and you want to build them up sometimes to be more powerful than they actually were. They were just trying to figure shit out too. So the question of good and evil in reality is completely different than the fantasy world.
Yeah.
They can call themselves evil in the fantasy world and nobody bats an eye. But in the real life, I don't know. I think it's more complicated.
You say real people don't really have an alignment?
I don't know. Sometimes I don't want to get into world events right now. But no, the alignment system is very inaccurate to discover anything about a person, mostly because it doesn't take into account, honestly, time. Because I do feel like time and circumstances have a lot to do with how we act.
Yeah. Okay, let me bring this. These are big philosophical questions. So let me bring this conversation a bit back to the concrete space we're in, and how, and the question of. Okay, so it's a world that rapidly switches between like real life and a complete fantasy world, and back and forth between those. And then there are those scenes that are sort of oddly in between, where Tilly and Agnes are talking. And I think the play leaves it sort of open where we are there.
Yeah.
So how did you and the designers and the actors like tackle those transitions?
Well, it's really interesting that I think knowing as I know a little bit, I don't want to be presumptuous about your feelings about storytelling in theater, but in the frame of the show, it starts with a narration and ends in a narration.
Yes.
And has a lot to do with stories. So the actual frame of the show is a story.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if you think about that, it is the story of how Agnes found a way out of her old life. And at the end, it's a story of how she honors Tilly and how Tilly was able to inspire her in the future.
Yeah.
And through the idea that it's a story about the fantasy world. It's a story about real life. It's a story about her mind and what she was thinking at the time. And each aspect that you see on stage is part of that story, framed within fantasy, Agnes's mind, or reality. But the greater frame is it's a story about all those things.
Right. Yeah.
And so when we flip between those, the big frame and the three other frames, that's kind of the approach. Each one of those frames has its own sort of rules.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we establish them as a cast, and then we kind of obey those rules in it. If that makes sense.
Do they come with different? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure about acting styles or whatever, but like, as you were working those scenes, like, is Agnes in real life like a different like actor than Agnes the asshatted?
No, I think that's an interesting thing because she's our character, who's our point of view character. So her discovery of those things is the show.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But at one point. And this isn't just because we didn't want to keep changing her costume.
Right.
But pretty much she goes from being dressed like a very suburban Ohio, I don't know what you would call her, not just
high school teacher.
Ohioite,
yes,
a high school teacher, to being, I don't know, the reincarnation of Boudica. Right? So like, but we don't change her back at any point, even though she goes back to high school. So, you know, there's a funny, it always makes me laugh because she's talking to a high school student and she's dressed as a warrior and she's in her class and she goes, "You must think I'm crazy." And the high school student's like, and I don't care to make that. I don't care to make the audience like, to let them off the hook and go, "Oh, don't worry, you know, she's actually dressed as a high school teacher."
Right.
I'll just let them wonder if that's actually how she's dressed. How far is she in this obsession about the fantasy world?
Yeah.
Becomes a really interesting thing. And I don't think we need to answer it. We just have to pose it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that true for all the characters though? Like, I don't know, is Chuck and Orcus or oh God.
There are many points in this show.
Calliope and Kelly, like are they like different characters when they are in character? Then?
Well, and then there's the character of everybody remembering how this all happened.
Yes. Yeah.
To the story at the end.
Yeah.
So like that they are in those three places really.
Yeah.
I think. And sort of how I imagine like if they were gathering together to tell everybody what the story of this, how did you guys all meet?
Yeah.
This is the kind of story that they might all tell together. Oh, I met this person, and then she, and then this, and then, you know, and how all that worked is the story of the play.
Right.
Now, I think you can think of it that way. I think there's lots of ways. It's a really good play in how many different, it's got as many facets as a 20-sided die.
20? That's 20? We can enumerate them.
Well, if you roll this twice, you have, you know, any of these die. But no, there's so many facets to the play, and a different production will highlight different things.
Yeah.
You know, my interest is in the psychological journey of Agnes, going from through D&D, overcoming grief.
Right.
That's what I'm interested in. I think the play has an interesting statement at the beginning where she loses her family in a car crash and says the play is not about that tragedy. But I don't think you can, if the playwright ever sees this, I'll be interested in what he thinks. But I don't think you can put that in there as an event in someone's life and have the play not be about that.
I know. I agree.
And so on some level, her dealing with the ghosts and just the idea that not knowing your sibling and having them taken away before you actually get to repair the rift between you. Yeah. It's so heartbreaking that that's what the play's about.
I mean, it's an interesting thing that the play, I mean, I can imagine a more brutal version of this play where Agnes finds out just how little she knew about her sister, but then doesn't have those therapeutic exchanges with her sister that she does get to have in this play.
Yeah.
Because that, in a way, right? I mean, those fantasy conversations, I guess.
Yeah, that's the wish fulfillment.
Yeah.
Right, that the play is doing.
But they do actually get her somewhere, right? They do get her to some kind of place of healing or something like that.
But most people, including myself, who watch the play that have lost, say, a sibling, you don't get that.
Yeah.
And so the play does have a sort of catharsis for us. Like, for people who have experienced that kind of grief, you go, oh, I would have liked that.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a chance to, like, repair some of that. That'd be great. And so I think that the reason why I think the play specifically the last 20 minutes, but all through, it's very impactful because of, I think we get the idea that sometimes you can't bridge those gaps between people, especially when they leave.
Right. Yeah.
You know? So,
and I guess there's maybe a final thought because we should wrap up, but I mean, it just struck me, and again, I didn't get this when I read it the first time, but that the parents and the loss of the parents is just, it's sort of silenced, right? Like
you only got to 90 minutes in the end to do it.
I know, but it's
a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Presumably she had it's the complicatedness of the relationship that determines what needs to be worked through, right?
Right.
Like, this is, having lost a dog, it's really awful to lose a dog, right?
Yes, tell me about it. Don't make me cry.
We both had that experience. But the thing about that is it's not as complicated a relationship.
No.
Because there's just love.
That's pure grief.
Right.
Yeah.
So the one thing, though, is you do wish you could talk to them about what's going on. Right?
Yeah.
So that is a commonality.
It's true.
But if you have an uncomplicated relationship, which I think Agnes probably did with her parents because she was the good one.
Yeah.
The one that was doing all the things right.
Yeah.
I think there's not as much to figure out with that. So there isn't a play about that. That's just sad.
That is that's actually, I think that is a very good, I like that as that's a very good sentence. It's just sad there's no play in it. Yeah. Pues, yes.
This relationship, though, is super complicated.
Yeah,
and it isn't like one of the nice things about it in the way that the two sisters are relating is we're trying not to make it sentimental at any point, to keep on. One of the first things that Tilly says is, it's not therapy, it's D&D.
And it's funny, right? I mean, I think we should say this. It's a funny and fairly raucous play as well. So it's
a funny play with a beating heart.
Right. Yeah.
It really does. I mean, you can't do this kind of thing without all of that, that lovely, irreverent humor that happens, and it's right in the writing. It's beautiful in that way. The characters are fun. The situations are hilarious. It's fun to see somebody. One of my favorite scenes is when Agnes first goes into the world and she has to figure out what she's supposed to do. Like, do I fight monsters? Do I talk to them? What do I do? But the monsters just keep attacking her and she's trying to figure out what's up, you know? And then the types of things the types of monsters we see and the types of relationships that are around the campfire for our heroes, there's a lot of joy in there, and a lot of humor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see what you and the students and the design team have, what real world you have created out of this text.
The design team has done incredible work. It's a beautiful show. And the actors have committed on all the different levels. Even in the fantasy world, we're going for stakes. We've got backstories. We had really interesting things happen. Lots of humor. And in the reality, same. Right? So I think people will enjoy the fact that it's 90 minutes, but it's really rich. Right. It's a rich 90 minutes.
Cool. Well, I can't wait. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And I hope many of you will make it out to the theatre starting tomorrow, February 5th. We're running till Valentine's Day, and tickets are available at the link that will be below.